Hey, what's good, y'all? Welcome into the Fantasy Football Universe. I am Jim Moeller 05, SC Romero, and joining me today is one of our buddies with the Fantasy Football Universe, SC Romero. How you doing today, SC?
Doing good, my guy. Doing good. First and foremost, congratulations, man. First wave of SFB. Saw you got
Let's
in. So
go. Yes,
congratulations,
sir.
SFB
That was
14.
that was pretty sweet. Not gonna lie, I had to not like the last couple of years. I've had to do some fun little interactions where they were doing like giveaways. Like I went posed at like with in Federal Way to kind of where I live. There's all these like fast food restaurants. It was like take pictures by all the fast food places. So there's pictures of me going up to like Arby's taking a picture. Then like Red Robin and all these places. So this
Nice.
year's a little bit different. Like the first wave goes, I was like, oh okay. I'm still gonna
Nice.
participate and have fun with the fantasy care stuff. But yeah, by the way, if y'all are very unfamiliar with this SFB, which I mean, if you're watching our channel, I'm assuming you're not, go check it out. It's the biggest tournament fantasy football in the world. It's an amazing cause. They work with fantasy carriers. They gave away toys at the end of the year, a bunch of kids. It's what we all love to do. Like a bunch of degenerates talking fantasy football and donating money and time. So it's
Right.
something I very much love. And I know I'm assuming the rest of us are going to get in. You, Aaron, and Jeremy. It just might take a little bit of time. He said he's sending out like 500 more waves of invites and more
Mhm.
invites. Just going to keep coming and coming. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it all go. I know we're
Yeah.
going to do some shows later on in the year when the scoring drops. In the meantime, we're kind of just like we don't know what to do yet because the scoring has we've seen changes every year. So it'll be fun to dive
Yeah.
into that point when we get there.
Oh yeah, no, always a good cause. Always fun being there. I was in the past 2 years. A great time to network too. You have a lot of people just talking. You could join different divisions on. Hey, I'm picking 103. Who else is doing it? Just talk amongst those people and just network. So always a good opportunity there. And like you mentioned, for a great cause there, and it's just a lot of fun, man. So hopefully we can all get in and represent the fantasy football universe and just have a fun time in SFB.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. Now, our short shows about today is the AFC East Superlatives. And if you guys seen the previous shows, what we're doing is we're talking about each position. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight ends, and place kickers. And I know dynasty people don't kill me for the kickers, but we got them in here. You just gotta live with it. So it is what it is. And we're talking about it from a redraft and a dynasty mindset. If there's big differences between them, and you'll see, some guys there's big difference with age. Case in point, in this division, we have Drake May, we have Aaron Rodgers. That's a massive difference in age, right? So if
Mhm.
you're forcing the two, there's gonna be a change. So let's dive into these AFC East quarterbacks. And would you rather talk about it from a redraft perspective or a dynasty perspective?
Let's talk dynasty first because I feel that's the yeah, let's talk dynasty first.
All
That's
right.
the easier one here.
So I think it's pretty like consensus. Everyone's gonna have Josh Allen as one, and then
So
it kind of. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was say that's is it consensus still? He lost, Stephon Diggs. He lost Gabe Davis. You have what Kincaid, and you have you can argue Dawson Knox and James Cook. I think it can be argued that Tua is the one in this division moving
Ooh,
forward, just
spicy.
because he has Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Achane, Mostert. They may try to get a tight end or something, but with Josh Allen, don't get me wrong, his capabilities of rushing make him a top QB threat, and it signs point that he may have to rush for 1,000 yards this season, not having any receivers, right? But also, case in point, if he does have a receivers, does that impact his yardage in throwing, and does that make him, go further down, or maybe not as many touchdowns, as there once was? Diggs was his guy, and we saw when Diggs joined the team, that's when Josh Allen elevated to that next
Mhm.
step and become a top dynasty QB. Um, so I mean, I think it could be argued that Tua is the one in this division.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I'm personally not going to go that bold because if you look at the points per game status, Allen was at 24 last year. Tua was at 16. That's a
Mhm.
monumental like chasm between the two different. So like it may converge where they get a little bit closer together. But like the interesting thing, like you're talking about with Diggs, he came right at the perfect time where Josh Allen changed his throwing motion, reworked how he threw the ball, and all of a sudden
Mhm.
he became a lot more accurate. Obviously, Diggs helped with that, but he became a better quarterback, and then Diggs as well. So it was like the combo effect. So to
Mhm.
your point, I think people are a little unsure of Allen. I'm not. I think this guy's just an incredible quarterback for fantasy in the NFL. Personally, I have him well. Are you willing? So if you're drafting these guys for dynasty, are you going to put Tua over Josh Allen? Are you going to go with that route, or are you going to keep Allen at one?
No, I would definitely keep Allen. I was just saying, I think there is a realm where Tua has a better season. At that point, though, when if Josh Allen's on the board, I'm looking at what else is there. This is a scary time for me with Josh Allen. Like I feel like I'm relying more on the upside of the rushing than him
Mm-hmm.
passing because it's not. I don't trust. any of the wide receivers they have right now. Of course, draft day can change that. We'll talk about wide receivers here in a bit, but that's where I feel right now, where I may take a wait instead of getting Josh Allen in the first, maybe get to a late first or in the second round rather than doing that.
Yeah, what's interesting about Josh Allen the last 4 years, he's basically been the QB1 in scoring. He's hovered a little bit. I think 1 year he was like QB2, but it's been him, it's been Mahomes, it's been Hurts, it's all the top end guys, and Allen's been the best of the bunch the last 4 years ever since Diggs been there. I know we talk about, like, everyone says Mahomes is Mahomes, but like for a fantasy perspective, Allen's a better quarterback because he has more of a rushing core, and he continues that every year. Even last year, he was still rushing plenty, and we
Right.
saw the touchdowns they may come down, the passing they come down. I just think the floor is so high with him. It's incredibly difficult for Tua to get there. He needs to have one of those 40 or 50 passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
But
And last year we are talking about Tua retiring, right? If he takes another
yeah,
big hit, so that's another thing to consider too. We
there's
may
always
end
that.
up saying Drake maybe the guy if he comes out and
That's
does a Josh Allen thing. So we never know.
I think so. The way my dynasty rankings are going to go is I'm going to have Drake May above Tua. Like I'm already going to have Drake May as my QB2, and it might seem a little bit spicy, but I'm betting on the talent, and him being in New England is a little bit just like, ooh, that's a little rough to deal with. But where do you guys have? And then we can throw Rodgers in at 4, but he is really old. I'm assuming he's going to be our 4th guy. Do you prefer Tua straight up over Drake May, or are you willing to take Drake May above Tua, even though his situation is immensely better?
If Drake May goes to Washington, I would take him over Tua. I think there's better weapons. If he goes to New England, man, I know people talk about if you have that star quarterback, right, you got to get him and don't get that receiver. I think New England needs to go Marvin Harrison. You look at the quarterbacks that have been in there, they don't have a wide receiver. Get arguably one of the best wide receivers we've seen in a long time in this draft, in Marvin Harrison Jr., right? And that way you can also get a quarterback later, maybe Penix or even maybe Mix. I think they can even be spicy and go Spencer Rattler in the third. And that way you have Spencer Rattler and Marvin Harrison there. I don't like one of these top 3 QBs, whether it be Caleb, May, or Daniels to New England. I just think that's a death trap with what they have right now. So in that regards, I have taken Tua. But if May went to Washington, I would take May over Tua.
Yeah, it's interesting. If we fast or rewind it to last year, people were very worried about CJ Stroud going to Houston, right? Because the situation, they didn't have Tank Dell yet. Nico Collins had not fully broken out. People are like, man, that wide receiver room looks rough, and he is a passer, so we don't know how it's going to work out. So I think sometimes we dive a little bit too much into these rookie situations because it still is unknown. Right. And they got to bring in somebody else there. Like Demario Douglas is an NFL quality slot wide receiver. But yeah, they don't have anyone on the outside. Like, it's pretty rough. So 100% I'm with you. It's just a bunch of guys that are NFL guys. No one that stands out. So ideally, they draft a wide receiver round 2, round 3. They help him out that way and go that route. But yeah, you could accidentally like flip it where you talk about get Marvin Harrison Jr., whoever your wide receiver one is, put him there, figure out the QB situation later. But in this circumstance, like we don't know who they're adding right now. How would you rank these guys 1 through 4? Say Allen's 1. How do you go 2, 3, 4 in Dynasty?
In Dynasty, I mean, you go Tua, May, Rodgers. In just Dynasty, Rodgers, I think, can be argued as like the 2 in redraft because of if he's healthy, it's Aaron Rodgers, right? He's still a top quarterback. He has Garrett Wilson, has Brees Hall. They're probably adding a quarterback. Even Conklin, looked great last season. But because of his age, the value is very hard, to gain on him. So even if he's the QB1 of the season, you probably still can't get a first for him because it's like, well, he's 42. You know what I mean? So in that regard, just like, you take him and you hope he just has a great season and leads you to a championship, but you can't do much with it as far as dynasty and gaining more value for him. So he has the least amount of value. So that's why he's number 4.
Okay. So we're going to settle on that where we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 of those guys. Now, on a redraft perspective, I think it's a little bit interesting with Rodgers because we know he's such a good quarterback, even though he's coming off the Achilles and all the injuries. How would you guys rank them 1 through 4 from a redraft mindset?
Yeah, I mean, again, Allen, you take it for the upside. I think Tua could be argued, but I think Rodgers is that number 2. But the thing is with that in redraft, I think you can hold off on taking Rodgers until like round 8, round 9. Especially in Superflex, maybe not. Maybe it's different, but especially in single QBs, I always say, don't get a quarterback unless you're, top 3 picks, even then, but still don't get a quarterback because it's single QB. You can afford to wait out and get your Aaron Rodgers, maybe get your who else am I thinking of? Drake May could be late, Derek Carr, even things
Kirk
like that,
Cousins.
where you get them, yeah, Kirk Cousins, get those guys later because the upside, they have that possibility. Aaron Rodgers fits into that category, and people are gonna be afraid. He's coming off injury, he's older. People are gonna be afraid to take him, but again, Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. What did he say in that one interview? RELAX. Just relax, right? So he's going in there. He has great talent around him. So in that perspective, I let's say everyone's healthy, right? They're all on these teams. Everyone's healthy. Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Tua, Drake May.
All right. So interestingly enough, I think that's probably the way it's going to go. And if we look at from basically best ball ADP, Josh Allen is QB1. It doesn't hit till QB14. That's Tua. Then it drops down to Aaron Rodgers, who's QB21, and Drake May is QB24. So like you're talking about, Rodgers and Drake May are the two that are extremely they're cheaper if you want to go that mindset. And with Drake May and his uncertainty, I wouldn't be as bullish on him in redraft as I am in Dynasty because I want to see it in redraft. You can more play the long game in Dynasty, right? Because you're betting on talent. But yeah, I think that's more than likely how it's going to play out most of them. If you really, like you talk about with Tua, you can push him up. It's just we've seen Tua, he fluctuates a lot. The situation, end of the season, issues with that. So yeah, we're going to settle on those you see the differences basically in redraft and Dynasty. Let's head on over to our running backs now. And do you want to talk about it from a Dynasty perspective or do you talk about it from a redraft perspective?
Let's switch it up. Let's go redraft for these guys.
All right. So how would you? Because this is a good group of running backs right here,
Yeah.
and it's going to be interesting because for me, Ramondre is the clear 4. But let's break these guys down. Who is your 1? Who's your 2? And who's your 3? Who's your 4 for you?
Okay, well, one's Brees Hall. I think that's argued. It could be argued he's Dynasty RB1 too. So what is Brees Hall? This is where it gets interesting because Ramondre is good, right? And this could be a season if they have Drake May where they're like, all right, we're going full throttle on the run. We don't know what's happening with Zeke yet. Who else are they bringing in, if anybody? So it could be him. They could try to pound the rock with him. James Cook. I'm very high on James Cook. I think consensus right now is around like RB14. I think he could crack the top 10. So that'll be huge. But also, recently said in the Fantasy Pros article for Devin Auschain, I think he said Auschain, but for him, he can easily bust for 2,000 yards in his 3-game span from week 2 to week 4 or 8, like that. Those 3 weeks, he's averaging 150 yards a game. So if he does that for a full season, he's easily giving over 2,000 yards, which would be huge. That'll be a massive, massive season for him. The thing is he healthy? Yeah, and that's with Raheem Mostert out there too. So, to be spicy, I would say Chain 2 because of that upside. Then Cook, then Ramondre. It's interesting though too because Chain can catch the ball too. The thing with all these running backs outside of probably Ramondre is they can all do some great pass catching work. Ramondre can, but not as good as the other guys here. So yeah, I think just going back from right to left, you go Hall, Auchin, Cook, and then Stevenson for me now.
And I'm with you. That makes sense. I think Hall's the clear one in both redraft and Dynasty. We know the talent and the situation. Like he gets situational upgrade with Aaron Rodgers coming back this year. The offense could be really good. He could theoretically dethrone Christian McCaffrey, finishes the RB1. I think it's really interesting with Auchain and Cook. Cook was surprisingly a bell cow last year. He had upwards of almost 280 touches last season. If somebody told you before the season he's getting 280 touches, you'd be like, "What are you talking about? You're a crazy person, right?" Auchain, I think for him to hit that true ceiling, Mostert needs to go down, and they just have to not be able to rely on anyone. But we've seen this with Auchain last year, the injuries, and people are worried about his uncertainty with that. But I think the upside it's so high with him. And I love James Cook. I think he's a great back. I do wonder if his the amount of workload he gets goes up at all. I'm not sure if it is, or if we kind of saw the ceiling for him. But we've heard about Brendan Bean talk about the 2 guys they want to feature this offseason going in is James Cook and Dalton Kincaid. Those are the 2 guys they want to send this offense around. So theoretically he could get over 300 touches. And if he does, he's gonna I expect him to outproduce Auchain. So I think they're both in that RB basically 4 through RB10 in Dynasty mindset with those 2 guys. And then Ramondre, he's a good back, but last year that offense was atrocious, and they brought in Zeke, and Zeke was carving out a role, still proving he's NFL quality back. So I think it's interesting from that perspective.
I think for rookie drafts, New England's an interesting spot because I think they do attack the running back position, whether it be 4th or 5th round. But those are always guys you at least get one season out of possibly. And then Auchain, I think it's a huge benefit that they did resign Raheem Mostert because that's someone that can be good. And if Moeller is healthy and Achane, that is a great 1-2 punch. You can argue that's the best one if they're both healthy, just because on how they can get around the defenders, how they can break out, big plays at any given time. So I think that's big. And honestly, Moeller, I mean, he finished RB5 last season, I think, or
I
something
think
like
he was the
that.
RB3 last year. If I'm double checking, I'll double check that back. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was high last year. He was real high. Yeah, he was the
So
RB3.
we could assume he's healthy. You can possibly slide him before Ramondre as well in redraft. Assuming again he's healthy there. In Dynasty, I wouldn't just because that age, but in redraft, you can possibly put Raheem over Ramondre. And Raheem you could probably get a lot later again because that age factor.
Yeah, it's interesting. People are very much discounting what he did last year because he's plus 30. He might be the oldest. He might be one of, if not the oldest running back in the league, getting significant touches in the league. That's just kind of what he is. He's dealt with injuries all the way throughout his time in college, San Francisco. Like, he just is a guy that's never been able to stay healthy. So I think pairing those two guys together gives Miami multiple guys that it's not going to kill them. Interestingly enough, like you're talking about Ramondre adding the back in New England, I think Buffalo is going to add someone into that backfield because it's not very much depth and talent. The way I think it works, though, is it's still James Cook's job. Like, someone will come day 3, someone that the community probably likes, and they'll get hype. And if that knocks James Cook, I'm going to be all aboard just buying more James Cook just because I think he's a better back. So I think it's interesting with the rookie running backs and, like, how these guys come in and change the running back backfields. Like, Breece Hall, no one's touching his job. We know that. It gets a little bit more interesting with Miami and Buffalo, right? Just because people don't see those guys as true belt, like workhorse, bell cows, all that stuff. So I think it's a fun kind of dichotomy with those two.
As long as they don't get a pass catching back for Buffalo. I say that because you can get someone that's just between the tackles, and that doesn't do much work to James Cook because James Cook can do it all right. He can run between tackles, he can run outside, he can catch the ball. If you get a pass catching back, though, that tells me they're going to possibly take out James Cook on third down opportunities, and that can definitely deflate his value a little bit because he does do some great things when he's catching the ball in the backfield as well. So that'll be interesting to watch. Are they going to get someone that's going to be more of a third down specialist or someone just to kind of, relieve him and let him get a breather here and there to run between tackles?
Yeah, it's interesting because like we saw this last year, them playing out with who's the 34-year-old back that I'm blanking on that was there last year that was playing in third downs and he was doing the blocking role for Buffalo. It's blanking on his name. It's gonna drive me crazy. He was like the oldest running back in the league, but they didn't trust James Cook enough on some of these 2-down drills, right? And they would just take him out and it would be beyond frustrating. And then sometimes they would take James Cook out at the goal line. So if he could get more of that goal line work or that third down work, like we talked about, like that's how he finds his way into the top 5. I think of all these guys, he's the sneaky one where people don't think his upside's there. I think he theoretically has the possibility to join there. It's just he needs things to break right for him. And with Josh Allen being the rushing quarterback that he is, it's a little bit different. But all of these top 3 offenses, like the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Bills, are really good offenses. The Patriots is a TBD. So like Ramondre needs a ton of volume in that offense because if it's a bad offense, it's really hard to be a good back. We saw this with Breece Hall. He did all he could, and he was barely scraping top 12, like position. Right. He was doing his bit, right? So I think with Ramondre, like Drake May needs to come in and immediately boost that offense, which, Drake May is a good quarterback as possible. It's just there's more risk with him, I would say.
Yeah, I think if you could sell Ramondre right now, this might be a solid time because I don't see top 10 in this next season for him, and they're getting kind of a new regime in there, right? So this is an opportunity where they may not be sold on him. If they get another guy, we could see him go further down.
Yeah, 100%. I'm looking up his ADP right now. I think he's like going in the mid-second if I'm looking on Dynasty Data Lab. Yeah, he's basically going for the 204. If I can get the 204 for Ramondre, like I'll happily make that move, and I'll just move off of him because to your point, he is an older back. He did come out later. People don't realize this. He's not young. So he's moving on. Like I think he has one more year before his rookie contract ends. Like it's best with players in this situation for uncertainty. Just get out from running back because the 25 class is coming and it's going to be very good. You can reinvest running back then.
And I would try to add a third on that to him. Don't I wouldn't sell him straight up for the 204. Try to build on that value that he has where he has, top 15 potential and try to get something back for it, with some draft capital. Because right now, especially, your draft picks are high value, higher than a lot of players right now, just because people go crazy over draft day, right? And they're going to get landing spots. They'll be like, oh, I want this guy, so definitely a good time to move out.
Yeah, I think like you could switch positions. You can go Michael Mayer, tight end out of Vegas. You could do Keenan Allen, Marquise Brown, Calvin Ridley, Deontay Johnson. They're all in that ADP range. So you could find a guy you kind of like in that range and just move him that way. But yeah, I'm 100% with you. Let's jump on over to wide receivers. And I think this is actually an interesting group
Mhm.
And we see Rome Odunze right there. We're under the impression on the mock draft database that Buffalo is trading up for Rome Odunze, but we could do this. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, with Buffalo trading up to Romo Dunze, that's a heavy price. They're like pick 128, I think. So they would have to trade up to at least 109, which is hypothetically where Romo Dunze goes with the Chicago Bears, right? So this will be an interesting pick because they would probably have to give up a first and at least a second or a player, I would assume, to go there. Maybe they wouldn't go on Knox. They have Komet, so maybe another first to move up that far. So two firsts to move to 109 to get Odunze, which makes sense. I mean, Odunze is getting great comps. People have said CD Lamb for him. There's opportunity for him to be what Stephon Diggs was, if not even better, for Josh Allen. So it makes sense for them to go out there and get that pick. It would be a heavy price though. I think it's more likely that they end up going after a pick, like moving up to get a Brian Thomas Jr. or maybe an Xavier Wardy, jump the Dolphins because we talked about how Xavier Wardy, what's his name, McDaniels, had that little
Mhm.
moment, that chemistry moment, right, where they saw each other. So I think there's opportunity for them to get one. It's easier for them to move up to get one of those guys than it would be to get a potential top 10 pick. Now, if Odunze sliding down, they may trade out, trade up to try to get a top 15 to try to get him. But right
Mhm.
now we're seeing him as top 10. So I think it's going to be a lot for them to trade up. But if they
Yeah,
do, that's people are, I think if he goes to the Bills, if they trade up to get him,
wide
there's
receiver
gonna
one.
be some people that there's
Yes,
gonna be some people that are
yes,
like, you know
100%.
what? Let's forget about Marvin Harrison and Neighbors. I'm gonna go out there and get Odunze. So I'm not mad at that, and that will throw the whole community into some chaos. So
Yeah,
I'm for it.
this feels like remember when the Falcons traded up for Julio Jones? This feels like that would be that type of trade where the Bills are unloading a ton of draft capital to go up and
Yeah,
get a top 3 wide receiver. We can play it with Odunze if you want, or if you want to do like a Thomas or a Mitchell or Worthy, we can go that route with those guys. Well, let's just say the rookie wide receiver, whoever it is, like
yeah,
Buffalo is getting a rookie wide receiver. We'll go with that. We'll say it's around one guy.
yeah.
Um, how would you rank these guys from a redraft perspective? Because there's 2 really good wide receivers, and if we want to play with Odunze, we can say there's 3 really good wide receivers in the situation. And Douglas, how would you rank these guys from a redraft perspective?
So redraft, man, becomes difficult because it's between. Well, if you're saying a rookie wide receiver in Buffalo too, I still think you're taking Hill or Wilson. I
Mhm.
don't think you're upset if you take Hill. We just seen what he's done. He doesn't look like he's slowing down. He's still, he's not. He said he's not the fastest anymore. He said it's Waddle, but he's still arguably one of the fastest receivers in the league, if not the fastest.
It's incredible.
He goes by Cheetah for a reason. Um,
Yes.
so I think you have to take him. He just has so much value with Tua. He looks great. He said he has at least 2 more years that he wants to get over 2,000 as well. He didn't do that last year, if I'm not mistaken. He was just under like 1,800 or something like that.
Yeah, he had that injury
17.
late in the season that cost him like week 15 he
Yeah.
missed. And so he was on pace, but yeah, the injury kind of derailed his. I mean, he was still 23 points per game for fantasy. He was incredible. But
Yeah.
yeah, he could have set the record for receiving. Like he was that
So I think, and with him, his work ethic. I mean, you see videos of him putting in work with some of these younger wide receivers too, and yet he's still quicker than them. And that's not just him; it's just his work ethic is so smooth and so critical. What he does with his feet, what he does pre-catch, all that kind of stuff, it all plays into factor of him doing it correctly and precisely, and doing all that work. So Hill becomes the one in redraft. Then you go Garrett Wilson because again, if we're assuming Aaron Rodgers is healthy all season, Garrett Wilson. I was just looking at him. Let me
stud.
just see real
Absolute
quick.
stud, man. He's so good. He's so
Who's
good. I
this
think that's
guy?
the it's
Yeah.
interesting. Him and Drake London, like those are the
So
2 guys, right? Where they're really good wide receivers in terrible situations. Now the situations have flipped where
yeah,
both of them get the quarterback upgrade. Rodgers is supposed to be this year. So I
yeah.
think like you can lock Garrett Wilson. I think his ADP, he's going basically wide receiver. I want to say top
And,
6 if I'm looking correctly. He's wide receiver 8 off the board. So he's
and,
in that top 10. He's right up there. Like you're paying for the premium.
and without Rodgers, he got 147 targets his rookie year, 168 his
Mhm.
sophomore year, right? And he has yet seen over 100 receptions. Rodgers healthy, he's going to get over 100 receptions. So this is going to be great for him. So I think you automatically side him in there. So we go down to Pop Douglas and look at your wide receiver. The wide receiver room in Buffalo is very vague. It is in New England as well, so don't get me wrong. But in this sense, you're putting the quarterbacks up to each other. So if they go May, I'm taking Allen over May. So I would take that wide receiver that's attached to Allen before I would take the one attached to May, just because I've seen Allen do it. I know he can do it, and I know he will feed that wide receiver one. It would be different if Gabriel Davis was still there because that's someone that just has chemistry with him. So even though I would take that wide receiver over Gabriel Davis in the draft, that would make me think a little bit more about it. Whereas like Demario Douglas, who's really challenging him for targets right now. So in this sense, though, I think you take who's attached to the better quarterback. So whoever Buffalo gets, whether it be Odunze, Thomas Jr., Wardy, Aiden Mitchell, Franklin, whoever you want to say, plug it in, you take them over Pop Douglas there.
Yeah, I think it's very the talent will kind of guide you with the Buffalo wide receiver, and depending on who it is. Because like we've seen Pop Douglas, he's been a PPR kind of scam in that offense, and they just haven't been very good. So I think Drake May is going to find him kind of as the underneath the guy he can count on third downs, move the chains to do that, and that works really well for PPR. Now, if we're talking about Rome Odunze, hell no, I'm not taking him over Rome Odunze. But if it's one of these field stretchers that isn't like a targeter, I think if it's like a Troy Franklin or someone along those lines, I'll probably take Demario Douglas. But I know the community will probably push the Buffalo wide receiver above Demario Douglas. I think Douglas is just a cheap point scam. Wherever you're looking at with Drake May, I think that could work really well.
So here's the $1 million question then. With this lineup, Odunze goes to Buffalo. Do you take Odunze or Garrett Wilson?
I'm taking Garrett Wilson. Like there, we although as much as I love Odunze, and we'll talk about this when we flip to Dynasty in a second. There's still risk with Odunze. No matter how good of a prospect or profile is, he just hasn't done it the league. So from a redraft perspective, like Odunze is going to get pushed up where he's probably, I know like Marvin Harrison's already pushing in the top 10, which is kind of crazy from a redraft perspective. I think Malik Neighbors is wide receiver. Where is he? Malik Neighbors is like wide receiver 20-ish, and Odunze is like 25 if I'm looking at the ADP right. If he goes up in Buffalo, like he's going to skyrocket, and I'm very curious to see how he goes. If he goes up near Garrett Wilson, I'm taking Garrett Wilson. I know how good he is, and then I know there's maybe concerns with Rodgers. Whatever, it's 1 year, you don't deal with it. And I think this is kind of like how we shift from the dynasty to redraft lens. Like from the redraft lens, I don't want to play the rookie game, even though rookie wide receivers, we've seen them in the past, Jamar Chase and those guys, they can hit really well if they hit, but it's just like it's all opportunity cost, right? So for me, I'm not gonna take him above Garrett Wilson, but I freaking love Rome Odunze. So I mean, I would be like right up there. I'd be like real tempted, but my heart would be like Rome, but my head would be like, you gotta take Garrett Wilson. Like that's how I would get you down. So yeah, I think it's just safer to go Garrett Wilson. I'll say that.
That's fair. And at that point, though, I think you could possibly argue and say, let's say you get Odunze, though, he may have preseason before the season starts, he may have more value than what Garrett Wilson does because of that hype. If he goes to Buffalo, you know what I mean? Because again, because they lost Diggs, people will be like, "Oh, he's the one. He's gonna get fed targets." Everything that Garrett Wilson is gonna do, people are gonna think, Rome Odunze is gonna do it. So in a sense, he may have more value before the season starts, before we know what's actually going to happen, because people are going to say, "Oh, he's the greatest wide receiver. He's going to be this new one for Allen," all that kind of stuff. So I think there's an opportunity for you to possibly trade and get an upgraded wide receiver at that point too for Odunze too, because that value may skyrocket. And all these rookies on their landing spots, people are going to talk about hypotheticals, so their value may be as high as right now as like when they get drafted to their team, because we're gonna think, oh, what if they are the RB1? What if they are the QB that they need? All this kind of stuff. Their value is gonna be so high that if you're uncertain about it, you could possibly then flip it. Right now, picks have value because people think, oh, I can get here, with these certain players. But when they get drafted, those players actually have a little bit more value, because now we're gonna be thinking about everything. We're gonna be wishing and hoping. This is my goal. I think he's gonna have 3,000 yards this season because he's with so and so offense. That kind of stuff. Yep. Well, you can sell on that hype and then get something better next time too. So
yeah, 100%. So from a dynasty mindset, it's interesting because Tyreek Hill's older, right? So where are you? Where would you rank these guys 1 through 4 for dynasty mindset? Taking into the age different from Garrett Wilson and Odunze to Tyreek Hill. How does that shift for you?
So I think Hill, you can still get first round capital for him. I think, just especially if you're going for a team that competes, you have a team that's 112, 111, probably as like 1-8, you can probably get that for Hill right now. I'd say 107's touching like the fence there. From Dynasty though, because of age, I would take Garrett Wilson. I would take Hill. And then I would do the wide receiver in Buffalo and then Pop. Pop, I like him, man, but I think they do address that wide receiver room for him. I think that's something that they're gonna be interested in. But I think again, whoever goes to Buffalo, they're gonna be in targets with who Kincaid and Cook. Yeah, I'll
Mhm.
take that over there all day. Even if I guess if May's there, it may be a little bit different, but yeah, I still think the top seven wide receivers. I'm thinking of top seven wide receivers right now in the rookies drafts. I would take over Pop Douglas right now.
Oh, for sure.
So
Yeah, I think
more
Pop
too,
Douglas
but
is
top seven for sure.
ADP. Pop Douglas is like late second, right? He's in that range. Like people don't really value the upside of him. I think with Tyreek Hill, his ADP is currently going startup ADP is right around the 105. That's where the rookie pick is where he's at. So like you could play this game where you theoretically Rome lands in the right spot. And this comment from Aaron's hilarious because I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, baby, this is good
yeah,
stuff. I like this. So yeah,
yeah.
I was a little hyped, you could say. The blood pressure was blowing up. I felt a little tingly. I was like, woo, feeling
Yeah.
good. But yeah, you can play this game if you're trying to invest now. Someone trade the 106 for Tyreek Hill. Like they could talk themselves into that, and we see that kind of happen. But yeah, from a dynasty perspective, I'll take Garrett Wilson. I'll take Romo Dunze. Like I just trust the talent of Romo Dunze. And there might be like some risk this year. You're not going to hit 23 points per game that Tyreek hits. Like you kind of have to live with that for at
Right,
least year one, and you kind of have to push it off like down the road and play that dynasty lens. It's all about
right.
knowing your league and if that's a deal like you possibly do. But if you have Tyreek Hill on contender, it's awfully difficult. So you need some type of value similar to that to really get off of him, right? Because you're
If
potentially giving up the championship this year for
yeah,
the long term window. So like it's really
if
hard. But yeah, I would have Tyreek the third of these guys in Dynasty and then Pop Douglas.
the third of these guys, so if Odunze goes to Buffalo, you have to.
Yeah.
If you're competing, you're not trading Hill. There's no way unless you're getting like 3 firsts for him. If you're not competing, you have Hill. You need to go ahead and sell him because
Mhm.
it doesn't. When you get these older guys, it doesn't matter how great they are. You can have Brady for the past 5 seasons, but if you have nothing else built, you need to sell those guys because of
Yes.
what they can do, right? And their value towards it. And this is your time to start rebuilding. Don't hope and say, okay, I have this older guy, he's gonna lead my team. Well, if you have nothing else, go out there and get James Cook and a first for Tyreek Hill to a competing team. You know what I mean? To
Ooh,
do something
okay.
like that, and that way you don't lose value on that age. You also have Jalen Waddle there, and we saw Jalen Waddle do it in year one.
Mhm.
Played with some injuries year two. Tyreek Hill he's certified this guy. He has said this guy is fast. He's gonna be faster than me. He is faster than me.
Mhm.
The man himself has said this. So you know what I mean. So you have to be able to be aware about that and be like, okay, where's my team at? Be realistic about it. Is this an opportunity for me to sell? Do I actually have a window to compete, or do I need to try to sell? Same thing with Aaron Rodgers. If you have a team that's competing, try to go get a second. You're not getting a first for him because of his age.
No.
If you can get a couple seconds for him and you're not competing, go do that. Even though he may be a top QB, top five, top 10 QB if he's healthy, you can still go out there and trade it and get value because it's not doing anything to your team, even if he is that, right? So,
Yeah, I think from a contending lens, this is kind of what we talked about with Cooper Cup a couple years ago. He was valued at his peak. It's not going to get any bit better. So if you have a championship caliber roster, like you have a bunch of studs on this roster, it's not going to kill you to trade away Tyreek Hill. And I know that sounds crazy because he's that impactful. He's still just one player. So if you have a bunch of like win now horses on your roster, try to diversify a little bit because when that cliff comes for them all, you're looking at your roster 2 years wondering what the fuck happened, right?
yeah.
So if you can move him, like I would at least it's incentivized to like look at the price, see what you can get for him, and if you're comfortable as a dynasty manager doing that. Now this is interesting.
Yeah.
I already know where I'm going on this one, and Aaron probably knows where I'm going. SC, who are you taking? Are you taking Waddle straight up, or are you taking Odunze? Because like
Well,
Odunze is the wide receiver one in Buffalo. We don't
yeah.
know when Waddle's going to be that guy in Miami, so I think it's interesting dichotomy. Who would you take between these two?
Odunze, just because I mean, the wide receiver in Dynasty, yeah, I think you still take Odunze. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
because with Josh Allen, like we said, he lost some targets there with his guys leaving. But if he gets that guy, that whoever becomes that wide receiver in Buffalo is an automatic riser. Waddle is still second fiddle. And what if Miami takes Xavier Wardy? Is Waddle second fiddle, or does he become the third fiddle there as well? So I think it becomes I think they're of similar value. Like you could potentially trade that straight up because Waddle has some high value because we've seen it. So I would think I would personally take Odunze though because I know he's going to be the de facto one going into
Mm-hmm.
there. Where Waddle, unless something happens to Hill, he's always going to be behind Hill regardless of
Yeah,
what it is.
he'll just. I
So
know we're talking about like him maybe losing a little bit of speed. he's just such a good wide receiver. He does everything so well. In the next year or two, I don't see Waddle fully overtaking Hill, barring an injury. Like, Hill's been that guy for the past, 7-8 years since Kansas City. He was fighting with Kelsey. Like, he's an incredible wide receiver. That's the thing.
Right.
Like, he was like a hybrid guy coming out. He's transformed into one of the best wide receivers of our generation. He's awesome. Right. Now, it's interesting perspective. We were just talking about this with, like, tearing down from Hill. Like, I personally, like, I'd take, if Rome Odunze lands in Buffalo, I'm taking that deal straight up. Like, I'll just be like, all right, 106, make that move. Now, you might have to move up into the 104, 103, depending. I don't think he's going to go above Mark Harrison Jr. I still don't think he's going to go above Neighbors just because people love those guys so much. Personally, I think you could get the 105, and I think if you did it for the 105, I think you could get Odunze right there. I don't think he's going above those two wide receivers. Like, as much as we talk about it, I might have him above there, but I love Rome Odunze, so I don't think the dynasty market is as bullish as Rome Odunze as I am personally.
Unless you have Josh Allen and you have one of those top 3 picks. That's where I think the difference would be. If you have Josh Allen, you're like, shit, I'm going to take Rome Odunze at the, over Neighbors or Harrison, whatever you want to say, just because you want to get that stack there. I think that's a fair trade if you just trade the 106 for him. But again, if you're competing and you have the 106, I don't think I would trade down to get Odunze. I wouldn't do that necessarily. Even though it's dynasty, I still think Hill becomes the better fantasy receiver in 2024, regardless of whether Odunze comes out. So if you're competing, I'm not trading away that 106, or I'm not trading away Hill to get Odunze at that time. If you're not, though, I would definitely trade Hill. And honestly, again, you could probably get 106, and you could probably get an early second too with that for Hill. So, you can definitely get more for it. Whenever it comes to a player like that, you don't sell for minimums. Try to, gauge it. And if at the end of the conversation, like, nah, I'm just comfortable at 106, wait till draft day, make sure your guy falls to you, and they're like, all right, we can do this. But prior to, try to, milk it a little bit, get what you can as much as possible to make sure you get the best for your money as well.
Yeah, when it comes to dynasty, don't just trade to trade. Make sure you're comfortable with the deal. Whatever your price is that you're happy with, you're setting this guy away and he's going to, like, absolutely smash. You're like, I'm cool with it. If you give me this price and they hit it, cool, then you make that deal. If not, like, you could ride out Hill. We do this with guys like McCaffrey and these other guys, right? These true elite high-end producers that the age is coming for them. Sometimes you just ride them out to the sunset. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to roll with them and chase the championship. Like, you could go that route too. This is what I love dynasty. There's a million ways to play it. Let's here we got one more quarterback question from Aaron. I'm taking Josh Allen. You're gonna have to give me millions and millions of dollars. Like, I'm not that crazy, so it's like I don't think it's that close.
I don't know if that $50,000 cash, I'll use that for my fantasy league. So if you're giving me that straight up, and they're like, hey, I'll give you Josh Allen, but you gotta take Drake May and 50. And I'm not even a Tar Heel fan, I'm a Duke fan. So we'll talk about that differently.
Yeah, you're like, collusion? Nah, don't worry about it. It's cool.
I said, like, why are you buying the trip for the fantasy league? Don't worry about it, bro.
It's cool, man. I got this. I'm gonna host a party. We're having a great time. All right, let's jump to the tight ends, and it's nowhere near as exciting as these wide receivers. We're looking at a couple of these guys, and I'm like, oh boy. All right, so we got 2 rookies in here. We have Cade Stover going to the Jets. That's a late round pick. Ben Sinnott, excuse me one second.
To the Dolphins.
Ben Sinnott's like round 3 to the Dolphins. We have Dalton Kincaid, Hunter Henry. All right, Dalton Kincaid's the clear number 1 guy here in most likely redraft and dynasty. Let's say he's the 1 because realistically, no one's taking a rookie over him or Hunter Henry. How do you rank guys 2, 3, and 4 in redraft?
I'd probably take the rookie tight end out of New York, if that's Cade Stover. Then I go Hunter, then Sinnott. The reason being, I just don't like that they don't use their tight end in Miami. Like for pass catching, for fantasy purposes. He may be on the field a lot, but they don't use him for fantasy purposes. So that would automatically be, I would hate that spot for Sinnott because I think Sinnott's a great tight end. But I would personally hate that spot for him. I'd rather them go after like a Brevin Spanford or even a Cade Stover because I don't think that definitely deflates their value anymore. So I would take Kincaid, or the Jets take Henry, and then Miami's tight end.
Yeah, that seems like worst case scenario for Ben Sinnott because you're also fighting with Jonnu Smith for multiple years, and you have to overtake Jonnu Smith. I get it. Jonnu Smith's been teased the whole time, but he's NFL quality, like tight end. He's going to be involved and going to play. So I don't see how Sinnott gets onto the field and plays a lot like the first couple of years. It's going to be very difficult for him unless they're running some weird 2 tight end personnel, doing some strange stuff. It's Miami. They do a lot of different things. They could possibly go that route. because their wide receiver room is not very deep once you get past the top 2. So, I mean, there's a way it happens, but it just seems super unrealistic. And I've liked Cape Stover since like I studied him with the offseason. I was like, oh, there's something that's about him. So, yeah, I'm with you on Stover. I'll take him. For redraft, sure, you can do the Hunter Henry experience. You know you're going to get some touchdowns. You know you're going to get some yards. But realistically, if it's not Dalton Kincaid, I really don't want any of these guys in redraft. Like, I would just go other places because you're taking on a ton of risk in redrafts. Like Hunter Henry, Drake May, like there's that connection. But outside of that, it's just like, yeah. And Aaron says we'll pull this one up. I think it's interesting. So what happens if you switch these guys on teams? So Sonat's playing with the Jets and Stover's playing with the Dolphins. How do you feel about Sonat with the Jets? It sounds like you like that a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a tight end that the Jets get, I think, becomes a top spot. So, I would take Snot. It still has a 2 because you still have Kincaid. Kincaid's just a versatile one, so not as versatile as him. But I would definitely take Snot as 2, and then over in redraft or dynasty. If the Jets get a tight end, that is something that's very interested in me. If it's not Bowers, then I'm interested in getting them within the 2nd, 3rd round.
Yeah, I think if Sonat goes to the Jets in let's say round 3 or round 2, whatever round it is, right? He's going to get pushed up in the 2nd round. Like that's going to be a 2nd round rookie pick, even if it's not tight end premium, because people are going to like that. So it'll probably be a late 2nd. We'll stay in that range. And I'd be fine paying that price for him because you can talk yourself into him producing in year 1 because we talk about wide receiver rooms. The Jets is rough, man. Outside of Garrett Wilson, they need people desperately in that offense. And I know they like patchwork their offensive line and stuff. But the skill position talent is severely lacking there. So Ben Sonat could come in and play a role off the jump. And like this is why we talk ourselves into Cade's over too. I think that's a good situation for either tight end. So I'm with you. Now, from dynasty perspective, how high would you put Stover or Sonat in your dynasty rankings? Whoever goes to the Jets, like, are they going to be a top 20 dynasty tight end, top 15? Where would you put them?
I think you could argue top 15 because really you think about top 5, argue top 7 tight ends. There's a huge teardrop after that. So I think it's possible they become a top 15 tight end if they go to the Jets. If they're in the Dolphins, I think they're like top maybe 30. They may be bottom there. Where Hunter Henry would then be. Hunter Henry could have like a top 12 season this season just based on touchdowns and again with no other really opportunity there. So Hunter Henry could have one of those seasons and you can try to sell him as much as you can. It's going to be hard because if they get Drake May and Hunter Henry, is that guy, they don't really address that wide receiver room as much as we want them to. Hunter Henry could be that favorite target for him. So he could have a massive year and then you can try to sell high on him. So I would put them as a top 12 tight end, whoever goes to the Jets though.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think whoever that tight end is, and obviously I like Sonat more than Could Stover, but I like Stover as long-term bet. So either one of those guys will be top 15-ish. Sonat's going to push top 12. I just think he's better. I think Stover takes a little bit longer development track because he's still in the position. So I think it'll take a little bit longer. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that's definitely much better. Henry, it's really difficult to sell him for anything. So I'm with you. Like you just take him out, sell him for a second, call your day, be good with that. Now let's jump to kickers, and I know this is like our area of expertise, so we're gonna have a little fun with this. How are you parsing through these kickers in redraft? Are you just chasing the good offenses, or because like Tyler Bass has been a very good fantasy kicker, Jason Sanders has as well. Zerline's been kind of up and down. He was known as Legatron with the Rams, and then there's Chad Ryland. I'm assuming this is how I would just randomly put these guys. I would put Bass 1, Sanders 2, Zerline 3, and Chad Ryland 4 to redraft. Is that how you would have these guys?
Probably Ryland I may put as 2. Sanders had a bad season last season, if I'm not mistaken, compared to the season he had before, where he was, one of the best kickers, if not the best one. Reason why I say Ryland is you're looking at this. I think Buffalo will score, right? You have Josh Allen, you're going to score. The Dolphins will score. Aaron Rodgers healthy, the Jets will score. The Patriots, on the other hand, they can get down the field, but will they score? So I think Riley may have more opportunity to kick field goals, which I think those become better points than just a regular extra point, PAT. So in that sense, I would probably put Riley in that 2 because I think he may have opportunity more so to kick longer field goals or just get points on the board, where the Dolphins and Jets, they're going to try to air it out and try to get down the field to make those tough scores. Bass, I think, just all around is good because I think they can score, but I also think he has a great leg, and he's one of your top kickers right now anyway. So I would definitely put him 1. But I can argue, I think, Ryland going in as kicker number 2 in this division.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was surprised. Like, I did not expect to see Sanders as a kicker 11 last year. And what's his name? Tyler Bass was kicker 17. Like, I've seen Bass the past few years. Like I just put him in the top 5 because that's how he's been. He definitely struggled. And then to your point, Ryland was kicker 30 last year, but that offense was so atrocious and everything was broken. It's really hard to really fault him for that. There's just not much to do. So yeah, I think there's hidden upside with Ryland. If they get Drake May, it could be a much better offense. But I think it's just a much safer bet with Bass and Sanders to chase those guys because you're getting a good offense. Zerline seems like a mystery wild card to me, and I don't really know how to value him. Like I don't really play much dynasty with kickers, so it's kind of like just take the redraft mindset with these guys year to year. But Zerline seems like the wild card. Are you kind of in on Zerline, or is he like a guy you'd maybe just pass on?
I mean, I'm in on him. He has the leg, right? Greg the leg. So still very good. Still has that foot he can hit, 60-yarder if he needs to. But let's be real, in any kind of league, if you don't have Justin Tucker, then just pass on the kicker. So
yeah, this is kind of what we've been hitting on with the kickers. It's like there's just not much dynasty with kickers because like majority of them don't play in those leagues. So it's like
they're like in kickers, they're streamers. When you talk about dynasty and you have to pick up and you're like, shit, my kicker's on bye week. Either drop him or just run with no kicker, but it's like you just stream them all you want because they can put up 10, 11 points, but it's very unlikely that you get a Tucker or Harrison Buck or even Aubrey last year, putting up 10 plus a game, so just stream them when you can and don't necessarily stress about, oh man, I don't have a great kicker. Like you can find someone on waivers more than likely.
Yeah, I think on my 32-team dynasty league, my kicker was atrocious. It was the guy from the Cardinals, and I traded for the Dolphins kicker, right, Sanders, and like before the season, and like theoretically there was no difference between the two of them. I was like, I should have just kept the guy from the Cardinals, right? Yeah. It's just there's such fluctuation with them, and if you don't pay attention to kickers, it's really hard to predict. So it's kind of just like, all right, trust the guy with the good offense, go from there. But yeah, that's the kickers.
I'm looking at my top 10. It was Blake Group, 143 was it. And then let's see, the number 20 was 126. So you're missing about 20 points or so. Not a big jump difference, you know what I mean? So you can definitely go in there and stream and be like, all right, I'll just run with it. Just hopefully you have a better team around so you don't have to rely on the kicker hitting that. It is fun when you're like, man, I need you to kick this field goal to help me win. But hopefully you don't have yourself in those situations and you're just like, all right, I have a good team.
Yeah, on a points per game basis, the top guy was Aubrey. He was 10.6. We dropped down to kicker 20. It was like 7.6. So it was a 3-point points per game difference. It's very slim, the margins at kicker. You can kind of gain an edge, but there's way better edges to gain other positions. So it's kind of why it's not that big of a dicey deal. We're just kind of just like, all right, take the good offense. If they can't score touchdowns, like it's good, we'll roll with that. But yeah, that's going to be our AFC East Superlatives show. Make sure check out all of our fun content coming out this week. As my daughter's screaming in the background, which that's always fun. But we have a bunch of stuff coming out this week. We're going to be doing mock drafts this Sunday. We're going to be doing a little bit of that, and then we're going to fully dive into NFL draft content. I know SC has set up some really fun interviews for us on Thursday and Friday, so we're going to have some big names on the show. We're going to be doing all day Thursday, as much as Friday as we can. We will push it into the weekend. We'll have some stuff on Sunday, but yeah, it's just going to be a fun week. And we're also this upcoming week, we're going to be breaking down those dynasty rosters that everyone sent in. So we'll be doing that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as we get ready to set up to talk about the NFL draft. So make sure you like and subscribe. Check out our channel, Fantasy Football Universe, myself, Jim105, SC at the PPR Show, Jeremy, FF Rebel, and Aaron, the head honcho at FF Mad Scientist. So yeah, we appreciate y'all coming in to this episode of the AFC East Superlatives Show. And yeah, we'll see y'all later in the week. So take care, folks.
Peace.